All right, all right, all right, all right. What's up? What's up, motherfuckers? Say yo. Hang on one sec. Sweet. The dough went through. You are now a trader, and I got 22% of that. Where's the percent button? There we go. All right. So anyway, guys, just sending this off. Crypto and shit. Okay, so this here's my bullet points. In case you guys didn't know, I'm actually a legitimate candidate now for president, and now it's a matter of getting some headway and making some headway. So I decided to hit up some people to see if they wanted to debate. Oddly enough, I hit up Adam Kocash because I thought, oh, he's a good first stepping stone. And then when I logged in, I saw Destiny has an argument with him going on right now, or just got in a debate with him. I'm like, shit. Anyway, you guys know me. I don't have a lot of traction on the channel, but it'd sure be nice to build some traction. So anyway, though, okay, so major bullet points. I mean, A, I'm not a woman. B, I'm not a dark-skinned woman or a minority woman. And C, I'm not gay like butt check. And anyway, I thought, okay, so what needs to be done? What are the bullet points? What are the full spectrum bullet points of a campaign, right? And it's like, okay, so the whole idea is you start from the bottom. You start from the bottom and you go up from there, right? Meaning we start with the lowliest of the low people. The major concern are those who are homeless, those who are out on the streets, right? And so one of the first things that I would do and would start, one of the first policies is to, well, look, in order to feed and clothe and help the homeless, first things first, you decriminalize prostitution, you decriminalize drugs. I think that this will have a good effect, not on the homeless population per se, but on those things, the worry that the homeless people have relative to cops, getting beat up, getting stopped by cops. Their process of getting off the street to garner capital is always under scrutiny, especially if they're women. The next thing you do, you set up a what I think is like a blockchain technology, right? You give homeless people, hopefully they're not entirely out of their minds, but you give them a card of some sort, like a wallet. Like you give them a wallet, or you give them a card, and that card would have like a QR code on it. Then with this QR code, you could use blockchain technology, and all they would have to do is hold up a sign with that card on it, and you could scan it, see how much that individual has, just depending on the program, right? Like, let's say this was a transparent blockchain. You scan it, you see how much they have, what their goals are, what we're all trying to do to help this individual get off the street and get housing and get put on their way. Then you can donate to them. You can donate right off the blockchain, right? So that's one blockchain technology would work. Another one would be where you basically hook up heating vests. You give out heating vests for people that are in extreme cold, and you link those heating vests to a blockchain technology. Another one of the plans would be to, of course, put electric car refill stations across the whole country to move to that end, right? So what we do with those stations is you also have plugins for these heating vests, for nomads, for the homeless, for the traveler, for those. The thing is, there's not that many deaths from hypothermia per year in the States. There's like less than 100 people, but it's like to sleep and be entirely frozen the whole night and not die, right, is very debilitating on the psyche and on the body. And so this was one way to help feed and to help warm and pay for these individuals, right? So that's the beginning of the ground up approach, right? We want to start from the ground up and help those at the very bottom, right? Then beyond that, like I said, we need blockchain technology. We need to move at a major clip towards the Jetsons, towards Star Trek, towards flying drones, delivering products. So another one of the policy points is that we set up new airspace laws relative to drones, package delivery. I mean, it's coming around the corner. I think we're just trying to get the 5G cities all laid out, but 5G has smaller range. So what we do is, even after they're set up, then lower altitude or traffic lanes of air are set aside per city for drones, packaging, even human transport. I mean, a guy just flew across the English Channel, right? That's humongous, right? So that's all coming. We want to move into that faster. And okay, so what I think are still the major linchpin in the US is our link to petroleum, the petrodollar, and the retention of the US dollar as, like, we're regulating against Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's going to win anyway, meaning the cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is going to surround the fiat currencies. It's the workaround for exchange of all sorts of information, technology, and monies now. So there's going to be a huge hemorrhaging, I predict, within the U.S. financial system, right? So we're focusing. I mean, Trump is fighting right now tooth and nail with China about trade wars, and then we're accusing them of dropping their currency. Whether or not it's true or not, I don't know. And then we're only going into Venezuela, I believe, for the oil. We're doing whatever we can to debilitate them for the oil. Same thing we did with Libya. Same thing we were trying to do with Afghanistan, and, well, Afghanistan more to their bobbies, but for Iraq, right? The war was a falsehood to get over there, right? Some people, like Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard, got duped into going to war. She fell for it. She saw the buildings fall. She bought in the story that it was those guys that did it. She doesn't believe it was an inside job. I believe that it was an inside job. Regardless of that, right? This is back to just mere policy points, right? So you start out with the homeless, and then you work yourself up, right? Now, what's the next thing? You got somebody like Yang. He's talking about giving out $1,000 to everybody, just kind of across the states, right? Problem with this philosophy is that it's only temporary. There's going to be a temporary fix while the US dollar is hemorrhaging as it's being decoupled from the petrodollar, right? Meaning we can't continue to do that. The US will be left with, like, our big blast playing card will be our military might and our ability to use that military might in order to sell our debt bonds at negative interest rates that will actually lose the purchaser the money that is made to buy or convinced or duped to buy those bonds. But that's what the U.S. is going to have to do while it's financially hemorrhaging. There's other tricks up the sleeve, right? But now we had the great economy and more unemployment according to Trump, but then we just had a huge down day in the markets, right? This shows that there's going to be huge volatility. The U.S. is trying to hold on for dear life. China's huge. I think India I think their growth is going to be huge. Okay, but anyway, back to policy points. So then what needs to be done? Everything about the uniform commercial codes. The uniform commercial codes need to be gone into and retooled, right? And one of these retoolings, actually, once again, back to Bitcoin, has to do with uh, getting rid of accredited investor laws. You get rid of accredited investor laws, and it will allow the U.S. citizen to invest in blockchain tech and these other digital assets, right, that the U.S. has decided to call securities, and only allow people that have hedge funds or over $1 million and 200,000 minimum coming in per year to invest in these technologies. So U.S. people are being blocked out of exchanges globally. The rest of the world is gathering great wealth through blockchain technology and doing trading. In the U.S., we can still access a lot of things. You can still trade. But as far as utilizing some of these systems that are out there, we're blocked off because of accredited investor laws. So that's one thing. Once again, to end prostitution, decency laws. Right now, I believe that a nation is still a territory, a land territory, but it has some sort of formal history to it, something that can be looked back upon, that moves up through generations and allows a cohesion and a coherence. Right now, some of that, liberals, progressives, classical libertarians, they want the freedom that is afforded their natural human organism, right? They want that more than anything, and that freedom might push back against these conservative quote unquote values. So anyway, when I'm saying I think prostitution should be decriminalized, drugs should be decriminalized, I think the next step for decency laws, I don't think sex in public should be legal, but perhaps decriminalized under certain circumstances. I think nudity should be allowed, right? At least free the nipple. The next step, I mean, in the early, like 1910, it was still illegal for a man to show his nipples on a public beach. Men had to wear that. And then we moved forward, and then men lost it, and then we had nude beaches and so forth. So look, these are all things that people might not be for. I am for those things. Now, the whole criminal justice system needs to be gone through, right? We have legal wizards out there. We have all these kind of sovereign man on the lam groups. Some of them you might think are bunk, other ones aren't. These are now being ran by stats to see who can push back against the trumped up, no pun intended, prosecution problems, right? There's prosecution problems that come in where for any infraction, 2 charges are levied against the individual, such that one of them can be pleaded down, such that the other one sticks, and the racket called our judicial system in these minor misdemeanor offenses and so forth, where there is no property damage and no one has been hurt, they're still there wanting to cash out, right? These need to be gone into. The whole idea is that I still believe we want to let 9 guilty individuals go, such that 1 innocent individual isn't found guilty. But the way it's formed now, even if you have a leg to stand on and you're kind of naive about how the law is, you're screwed. You're screwed, right? If you're naive and you just go into the system, because you must then allow that to go onto your record. And if it's anything somewhat nefarious, then it's probably on your record for 5 years until it can get expunged. Well, 5 years is huge. So anyway, we got to reform the whole criminal justice system so prosecutors' advantage is brought back to an equitable state. And what this would take is literally, meaning if you go to regular trial, they want you to plead, right? Well, the problem with this pleading is that if you want a trial or the jury of your peers, you're not going to get it, right? They're just going to plead. It's all just motions of the attorneys that pass the bar. They're just in that club, and when you defend yourself and you push back against the system, like I said, there's stats to see who is able to get through some of these particular items. But what I was saying, what I'm getting at is this: if you want a trial in front of your peers, right, it's very, very difficult to acquire that. But the reason why there's this prosecutorial advantage that's in place is because if every single crime had to have a jury to it, the whole system would collapse, right? So as we're reforming the criminal justice system to get rid of this racket and get back to something that's akin to a letter of the law and justice, and having people on a jury, we need more lawyers. We need more students of law, right? We need more of these put through. And so one of the agendas, as far as our human organism in the States, kind of a civics class from maybe mid-junior high or the high school level, there would be a requirement to know the law structure of the country that you're in, right? That would be kind of put in. So that's type of an education reform. Okay, next huge thing, the hugest of things, I think, isn't necessarily that the idea like, look, it's not Medicaid. Okay, let me just go into the Medicaid and Medicare for all. You're a human organism. I'm a human organism. That homeless guy over there that's digging in trash, that's a human organism, right? We already have this huge racket of meat eating and killing other sentient beings. I mean, I'm a hypocrite with that, right? I oscillate. I'm fair weathered. But okay, the humans get rights. Human citizens of the U.S. get rights. Now, if that homeless guy falls down, goes boom, breaks something, and he can't even dig through the dumpster, then he's just rotting on the side of the road, right? That guy gets health care. Now, we already give emergency care. That's great. And a lot is written off the books. If we actually we interviewed the people that run hospitals and so forth, a lot of them might say, hey, Medicare for all, across the board for everyone, it would damage the whole system. Doctors would get paid less. There'd be fewer people going into medicine. The demand would go up. Fewer, and we would lose if we did it that way. But I still am inclined to believe that if we can spend $1 billion to $1 trillion per one piece of military hardware, and I'm not opposed to military advancement. We learn a lot of tech by developing these pieces of hardware, but we don't develop them and then make a contract and sell them en masse. Not anymore. We stopped that. Let them develop them. Let them build them, but we're not going to manufacture them. We're going to take those billions of dollars and we're going to put it into, like the progressives say, so into helping the people that need the medicine. Right now, this is a talking point of the left, and maybe I tend more to the left, but I think I also tend more to the right. I'm not some anarcho-capitalist. I think anarcho-capitalism is stupid. I believe in tax like I believe in gravity, right? I believe in tax like I believe in gravity, meaning the rules of the road, the rules of the state, civil law is based on a form of unification of territories. And so if we are to maintain as a nation, we must be a nation of laws, but we don't want to be a nation of cronyism and loopholes to laws, right? This is why we go through the criminal code. But the point is universal commercial codes, universal appeals to common law. These are all in place, right? The whole idea, that's what policy is. That's what politicians are. We retool it. Anyway, point is we cut down on the military spending. We pay there. That is a talking point of the left. On the right, do we build a wall? Well, apparently the echo from other presidents, even prior to Trump, is that border security is really a huge issue. Now, to get to the Jetsons and to get to Star Trek and to get to using QR codes to help the homeless and help the traveler, a hard wall in place isn't really a good idea. But I think if Trump, by the time even Trump gets out and the contracts are laid for the wall, you're going to have something like a huge, long, porous wall with maybe more avenues for asylum and so forth. So we do go through the history of what it means to be an illegal immigrant, right? Those came in the late 1800s against first the Chinese that were helping us build the railroad system. Our way of saying, hey, come, we want to work, we'll pay you while you're here, and then get out, right? The history of state expansion, states were not granted over, is my understanding, to become states until the land was populated by enough individuals, Caucasian, white, European individuals, right? And the other individuals were, if they weren't half a human in terms of the slaves or in terms of chattel or in terms of women in general, then there had to be a higher population in that area such that it could sponsor statehood and develop. And that's part of our American history and empire. And that itself is a huge discontent as to what's going on with people hating the white man, right? The white man, the definition of America. Why, when on the left, people are complaining. This is just a side note, right? Commentary. Because you guys know me. If you know me, I ramble a little bit. But, right, the pushback is justified against holding up the flag and going, I'm an American. And then the left goes, that's racist, right? Now, the Republicans don't see that as racist. But the whole idea is about the idea of colonial expansion. But the hypocrisy of the left is they like their post-colonial buildings and the technology that was afforded to them via the history that they've already accepted and been inculcated in, right? Everybody's got a level of hypocrisy. You're going to be able to find it. We're all going to be able to find it. Anyway, by the way, tweet and share this video. I'm doing my best, like I said, to garner some debates with different individuals. And hopefully these individuals are registered as candidates for the presidency. There's got to be some momentum. I got to get some traction, if even just to inject these policy ideas into the public air at a greater degree than me just doing videos alone. Now, I'm going to Nashville tomorrow, be recording another video. I'll probably be interviewing some people, hopefully, if that goes okay. Then I don't know where I'm going exactly from there. Okay, so anyway, back to what the next big thing is. Patent law reform, patent law sequestering. We truncate patent law. We truncate it. We cut it. We cut it in half. Why do we cut it in half? Because China, because the rest of the world doesn't give a shit about U.S. intellectual property law. They're swiping it anyway, right? Now, it seems very un-American. And once again, people on the right, property people, like, oh, hey, that's my property, right? Look, information is like digitalization, right? You can screen cut, screen share, screenshot shit, right? The whole idea is that the Chinese are utilizing our medicine, genetic information, everything that is developed in the world. Their high minds get to utilize to move them faster to produce more augmentation, cyborg augmentation, more genetic manipulation. Their ethics are different. Shit, they'll eat a cat. They'll experiment on humans to make different things. It's like the Nazis experimenting on Jews, the Nazi doctors. The Chinese, they'll make hybrid embryos. They're doing anything and everything that they can. They're stealing any tech that we can, and we give it over. Our Boeing plant, our Apple plant, the exchange is that they're agreeing that they get rights to the tech. So in one respect, they want to respect our intellectual property rights, right? But in another respect, they don't. So that's who we're competing with. And if we're going to get at a fast clip, what we need to do is take down a 15-year-old retention of patent laws that are often sold to the next individual, and then the rights are leased out, and we need to chop that down where an individual, when they come up with an idea, they have 2 years after they put it in to develop it. Beyond that, they have 5 years to bring it to capitalization. Then that individual will always be able to produce that patent and be known as the originator of that patent and that product, right? And this has to do with medicine, machinery, and everything else. But duplicates and competition can then be made off of that patent and used as competition even against the originator, right? In just a few years, people are going to know so much more about one another. I mean, granted, router systems cut off countries from other countries and people from other people, and people think blockchain means you're cut off or pushed away from, and you can read metaphor like that. I mean, at one point, when you walk across the boundary of another state, the net will know it. It'll know exactly where you are with all districts and all limitations. And I'm just saying, if our scientists are going to move in and develop, and our engineers are going to move in and develop, they need access to the chemicals and the knowledge and the methodologies to explore and expand physics, fuel, energy, and so forth. Okay, now on to energy. Now look, there's a guy on here, Piro, for example, right? Now, he's all about, like, the Green Deal is all like, hey, go solar, go wind, maybe do water energies, maybe do thermal energies. Piro mentions, hey, let's take uranium plants and use a better alternative in terms of thorium, right? So instead of setting up, let's say, these time bombs called nuclear plants, right? Which mean if they're well monitored, they can be disassembled, and these things can be, the spent rods can be buried appropriately. Shit, there's some less than 50 miles from me, a whole bank of buried uranium fuel rods, right? I'm in Utah. Anyway, point is this: it can be done. We can explore even things like thorium nuclear plants. The idea that people are saying something like Tesla, like, hey, there's free energy in the air, or there's different people like, hey, we can charge your phone without you plugging it in. It just needs to be within the proximity of some other device that will charge it. That's already available. The idea of medical, back to patents again, the idea that there's not huge cures that are already in place, that people are like, look, let that population die. They're good for nothing, right? They decide who's good for nothing, the assholes. And they don't, the best things for the disease that we have still have red tape, bureaucracy, and people attempting to make a buck on it. Now, what also puts me on the right is that I'm a socio-capitalist. We've never had some form of welfare throughout the history of humanity, even in the feudal system. Oh, look at all these peasants. The royalty wants to build an army. You got to feed them. You got to give them something. It's a welfare program to get something done. Same thing here. Look, We help the homeless, we help the downtrodden, we help the disenfranchised, especially during this huge financial hemorrhaging that I think it's happening, and maybe that's a blind spot. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we can run on infinite deficit spending forever. But if we did, then that would prove the Marxist contradiction of capitalism necessarily incorrect. If we can indefinitely go with deficit and debt spending, and that the goal then is just to budget how much we're going to allow ourselves to disperse money to the populace or to the world. Now, look, the U.S. is still considered really vibrant because after the 70s, when we got high-speed trading and we developed the credit card industry and we sold out America into debt, then we moved a shitload more money. People started acquiring their material goods. The mortgages then started selling off the mortgage, throw everyone more in debt. Then the country selling off bonds, going into debt. We're a debtor nation. That's why we are running. But if this little experiment called the U.S. empire, if these issues are not denoted by somebody up above, like I think Trump knows that it's a racket. I think he's shaking enough people's hands. I think all the head guys are greasing other people's pockets, throwing money in their wells to make shit happen. I don't doubt that. I think they're doing that, right? It's part of the current game. So how do you get rid of that? What policy can be done there? Well, more transparency. I mean, even this whole bit about New York wanting his tax returns, I think it's a great idea. I think getting involved in where somebody's finances is part of the transparency we should expect from leaders. Find out where there's money going, find out where the influence is. So look, my notion is that the Fed and Federal Reserve is going to do Hail Mary death cries as it's trying to regulate the US dollar and global economy. And I do think we're pushing people to the brink of war because of our 4,000 bases around the world. And so at least I'm able to articulate it, right? I'm articulating what I think the real problems are. Yang wants to give away $1,000 to everyone. Well, that's fine, but that will have to end at some point if the whole dollar hemorrhages. I mean, brings the country to what the 2008 crisis would have been without the bailouts. Bring it to our knees, hamstring us, right? So, but because it just seems like, hey, it's just a number, we're selling off these debts to the people that are willing to buy them. We're moving into negative interest rates. Let's just continue to do it. I think it's not good policy, but it is, I think, a better appropriation of funds that were purposely putting into the military. Okay, anyway, all that being said, oh yeah, where did I want to go with that? General economy. Basic, these are just basic bullet points. All right, so since I jumped the rail on where I was going to bring that thought, let me just go into corporate pay reform. Corporate pay reform. So I am still pro-capitalist, right? Meaning I understand, I think the notion of a good Marxist arguing that capitalism is a form of cannibalism and that it always produces a profit margin that moves to fewer while it's paying those more people less whom can't afford the products that in which they're making, and hence then there has to be some exploitation where the worker always gets paid substantially ongoing less and less. And this is the argument, and this is the classical argument for keeping the borders and migrant workers open is, hey, these vineyards in California, these farmers, they can pay a lot less, hence the farmers make more, which then makes them feel better. And then that's been pushed through, right? So how do we put all that in check? Corporate pay reform, right? So let's say we say, hey, no more migrant workers. You want people in the fields, you pay a healthy wage, and you get citizens and you pay them a wage. And then you sell your wine and you make less. And maybe you're not going to retire all happy in some mess castle, but you did what you wanted to do and it was kind of a fair shake, right? Okay, so look, the anarcho capitalist argues like, hey, we don't want taxation at all, right? If they don't want taxation at all, then the very medium of exchange being owned by the government should not be used. They should just trade, right? Now, I don't believe in income tax, but the government must tax, it must levy if it is going to have the bonded human with birth certificates in labor attempting to garner a wage in which that suffices for its organism to not only continue but to even propagate, right? Then that individual has to be able to work within a system that would allow that, and that system's structure, the form of that system, the structure of that system requires a framework of laws that is not dissimilar to understanding one's framework of language. We share language. There's a form to common grammar. You guys understand if you speak English and it's your mother tongue, you understand what it is I'm saying. You know the words that are coming out of my mouth. All right. So anyway, look, the point about corporate pay reform is that corporations there needs to be an averaging between the CEO and the board and the top level, a ratio developed on the averages of what those individuals are being paid, such that the lowest worker gets some derivative process that makes the acuteness of that corporation. If you take Amazon, you have a very, very large supply of the bottom level. And then as you go up, it looks like this, and it shoots up stupidly acutely, such that Jeff Bezos and this board are getting so much money, huge amounts. Now, the goal is to make that corporations more right triangles, or at least 45-degree angle triangles, such that if the CEO makes more, then those below him will necessarily make more. And then you will have people, let's say at the bottom of Amazon, who are then making $70,000 a year, not just $15 an hour, right? And then you'll get people trying to get on board of these corporations. Now, so corporate pay reform, in my head, any publicly traded company, it would be required of, right? You can't just pass out dividends to investors. You can't just do that indefinitely, right? So, meaning you can pass out dividends to investors, but you can't do so such that the worker and the working class is busting their hump and can barely make ends meet. So like I said, my plan starts with the homeless. The next step is the workers that are sleeping in their cars. They live in their cars, and there's a few of them. I even let them come in and shower sometimes because they don't know where to shower, or they're at some KOA, right? So what ends up happening is they're sleeping in their cars just to make ends meet, and they're working full-time jobs at these mega factories, Amazon specifically. And it's a pity, and it's a bit of bullshit, right? Now, the idea of breaking up the monopoly on information. See, now here's the benefit of China, right? We have this disillusionment of the way China is put together because we think it's all Marxist and totalitarian and everything. And they see, and it was kind of broken down to me, and I believe this is the case, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe this is the case, right? We have a multi-partied system that shifts in the government, right? Each party moves. Like modern Democrats are more like 80s Republicans. So we're kind of moving to the right. And yet modern Republicans are becoming more value historic oriented. Maybe. Anyway, my point is this. In China, they have one party, but they don't allow capitalists and plutocrats and people to go in and grease the hands of the politicians, right? The policymakers control the capital of the country, and it's thriving. They got Starbucks and McDonald's over there. They have moved up financially faster than any population, faster than the West has. China has retained a capitalistic clip, a quick clip at increasing the average worker's income. It allows for capitalism to occur. It employs capitalistic features. It just doesn't allow them to dominate and dictate policy. So just like the Young Turks and Cenk Uygur and the whole huge progressive left, I mean, not all of them, they get the money out of politics thing is important. So even though Congress is in control of this, if I was to take and become president, I would be tempted very heavily to put the pressure on to pass bills to limit and even reduce congressional pay to a mean average of their constituency. Meaning, if you come from a particular district or from a particular state, you have to average what that income is, and that's what you get paid. And you're no longer a politician per se, you're a statesperson. Because you're not there, you're there to decide policy, yes, but you're doing so as a representative on behalf of the state. You're not just there trying to always fight against the executive branch, right? Even though people make commentary on that. It's just get the executive branch in its place, have the judicial branch appropriately check it, have each branch appropriately check the other branches of government. I mean, first it was Congress, first it was the legislative and executive branch that were the main powers, and then the judicial branch had its declaration of itself in a historic court case, Mayberry versus something, I think, not Mayberry. Don't quote me on this. But then the judicial branch formed itself as the third equal branch. Now, I wish the judicial branch actually had greater powers to put the other branches in check, but they're kind of responsive to only what comes to their doorstep. They're not initiating policy or executing policy, right? Okay. Exhale. Okay, next thing. Government is responsible, right? If we dismantle, we break up Google, and we try to take this organization that has so much informational power, internet power, and financial power, and break it up and force it to not have this power, right? Put it in check. Same thing with Amazon, same thing with Facebook, all the medias, break them up necessarily. That is one way to put them in check. There should be some sort of economic power. I mean, even when Facebook says, hey, we're going to make Libra, this digital Bitcoin currency, we're all in cahoots with all these other companies and carrying the credit card companies. We're going to base it out of Switzerland so that the U.S. doesn't have jurisdiction over that particular blockchain. Of course, the U.S. felt that as a threat, right? Because a lot of the bureaucracy still needs to be funded. And how is it funded? Either we're selling off bonds or we're taxing. Then if we find organizations like, hey, we want to help Amazon, just like back in the day when we were helping GE, like, look, you're not going to pay any taxes. You're not going to pay any taxes. Well, no, they need to start paying the taxes. We need to figure out how to buy the bonds domestically within our own nation and not having a negative interest rate so that we can begin once again to not be a debtor society. But somebody, including the Fed, wants us to be there. Now, anyway, so breaking up the tech companies is one thing, but having a government competitive constitutional form of these companies could be implemented. But between the private and the public sector, it's another extension, another division of government that would need to be funded. But I think there needs to be government websites that develop holograms that individuals can walk through and see every individual in every department, in every position, with a title, the name of the person, what their title is, where they're at, and what they're getting paid, and that needs to go through even the intelligence agencies. So we know how many people are employed in the CIA, in the FBI, in Homeland Security, right? And it's not so that we lose ground for these intelligence agencies, right? There would be a type of lag, right? Just like in military. Like I think Assange and Snowden, these guys, whistleblowers, do not get they're not treasonous, right? The only thing that Snowden is maybe treasonous of is that he broke a contract, but he broke it for the constitutional ethic, our ethos, because our powers with the great power of the internet, it required the government to bullshit and gaslight the whole goddamn globe while they were getting up in our shit and still in our Fourth Amendment, just like they are now. The phone knows my altitude. It knows my latitude. It knows what's coming out of my mouth. It's shooting pictures, and it can be tapped into, backdoored at any time. Just for me to register as a candidate, I had to agree to allow full access to my computer systems. Not that they're putting in cookies and hardware, but that I can be audited, and if that whatever I do is being monitored, in other words, right? And I have to grant that over. Here's another thing. If you're against corporations and you want to get into government, too bad. You have to file to corporations, right? So I have Failsafe Political Action Committee is one committee. Campaign to elect Mike Fail. That's another committee. Still working out some loose ends with the Federal Elections Committee, the FEC there. But I'm a candidate on the site, right? So I'm still legit. Ballot access, that's the next big hurdle, right? As I said, and I got to get traction. Anyone knows someone I want to debate, can debate with, you know me. I'm not a dipshit. I'm not always out to lunch. I got my thoughts about God, aliens, the universe, and the unseen, right? But on a pragmatic level, on a grounded level, on a policy level, this is where I'm coming from. This is what I think needs to happen, right? So we pull back from weapons manufacturing. We redefine air and space. We get the money out of politics. We push like mad. We take plastic. Look, there's a lady, I don't know where she came from. I think it was MIT, who just basically figured out a way to take plastics and put them back into being oil, right? So instead of pushing the fossil fuel industry, we push to have recycling plastics into fuel, right? Like allow the system to still exist, allow the products of plastic and petro and the benefits that come from this tech to still fucking exist, but just do it through recycling and to create the leftover fuel as we're getting off of the fossil fuels through plastics recycling. Pull that shit from the ocean, pull that shit from the landfills. Let's go through this shit. We want employment. Let's get their hands dirty and go through the shit. Pull it up. Don't just bury it. Put fucking houses on it. Let's utilize what we can. Let's make vintage some of our garbage. People dig through garbage in third world countries. We're not above that shit. If we do have a hemorrhaging and we become very humbled, we'll be digging through garbage. Anyway, my point is we recycle through that shit. And the other thing, the French have a good idea, and I think I would push to move such that food products are able and accessible from the back end of grocery stores, that when they're getting rid of it, that they put it out so that people can go through it if they would like to go through it. Right? You would have the still potable waters or potable drinks and edible foods with the dings and the things that the posh, high end, average individuals who go through a grocery store would know. Now, another thing. Okay, so shit, I'm just going to keep doing this, right? I'm going to keep fucking going and rambling because you pieces of shit. We just got to do it. But look, even though I'm all pro genetically modified everything, and I think we need to move on it on a clip, and I think it will get integrated into augmentation of humans, I still think the ingredients list and where, like, look, someone would say, hey, look, we've always, since Mendel, and even before Mendel, we breeded our plants, we breeded broccoli and cauliflower from a common plant. Look, we bred these more resistant stocks with these other stocks of this and that food. Fine, we've made our weird foods. We've made our seedless through grafting oranges. Fine, we've done all that. Fuck, okay, we've done all that. That's not synthetic per se. When I say synthetic, I mean where we get into the rudiments of the DNA and we're mixing spider DNA with tomato DNA in order to yield some sort of resistant crop of tomatoes. That needs to be denoted on a fucking QR code about not just that crop, but like a generalized version of what the fuck's going on in that food in case you have a regular homegrown natural human baby. Like in Gattaca, you got the ones that are genetically produced, and then you got the love babies that are just the old-fashioned fucking way they come about through fucking, right? Those fucking babies, you might not want to give them a spider tomato to eat and get them hooked on some sort of candy cane mixed with Bigfoot's ass for the Christmas candy either. So, right. So the idea that we in the West, in Europe, they banned genetically modified food, even though now Trump's opened up, carved out the whole give them beef, give them our hormone genetically modified beef, do that shit. Well, okay, fine. All I'm saying is let it be known. Let shit be known to those who want to know it. That's the point when it comes to products. Okay, once again, the wall, build it, but build it very porously. Look, there's going to be in the future where shit, when augmentation and AI, whether or not it's controlled, you believe in it or not, just the rollout of 5G, the tracking mechanisms of organisms and items and cameras and all this other shit that I don't necessarily like cameras watching every goddamn thing, knowing our faces, knowing everything that we could possibly do, right? That's upsetting in a sci-fi sort of world. Maybe it's not so upsetting. The point is the rollout of cameras and a complete monitoring. It just seems as if that's what's happening. That's what space is there. We're watching everything here, right? Space cadets, we're going to start trafficking people up more into space. I think this has happened more than people already know. I think anyway, I'm not here to hypotheticalize on it. My point is about the wall. Like initially the idea of the wall, we just got done fucking tearing down the fucking wall in Germany. Gorbachev Reagan tear that fucking wall down. We just got done tearing it down. We know the history of walls. So the idea of a wall kind of moves against our greater instincts, So I'm just saying, lay it out, do it fine, but make it more porous. Not because I'm saying, hey, let someone through, right? To some extent, a black market, I still believe, is needed. Like black markets are in place because we have criminalization of drugs, right? If drugs weren't criminalized, the black market would go away, or it would dissipate or deflate. But my point about a wall, we don't have to fucking just tear down a whole goddamn wall after we build it. So look, just build more entry points and monitor those with the drones and so forth. Everything Trump's doing with the asylum laws with Guatemala relative to Mexico, you guys can look it up. That's all correct in terms of international law. You're supposed to be finding asylum in the country closest to you that will accept you. But everyone fucking knows that the U.S. hegemony basically demands shit. Trump demanded shit from Mexico at huge rebuke, huge tariffs, huge fucking negative ends if they didn't like pony up and get their National Guard together, start fixing some of this shit. And look, so in one way, that's all fine and dandy. I'm not saying I fucking hate on everything that Trump's doing. I don't. His rhetoric is almost, look, I'm a free speech guy. Say what the fuck you want. The president even has the right to do it. I'm just saying, don't do it, you dumb shit. Don't do it, because look what's happened. Okay, now look, we got all these shootings. We got dead bodies. We got these people. We got people pinning it on the white supremacists. Even these claims, this ordination of what a white nationalist is, right? The ability to categorize another human being, and like the left and the media is so busy saying, what do you identify as? I want you to tell me what you identify as, right? They want an answer, because they also want to be able to project an identity onto people, right? And then some people are suggesting like, hey, look, blacks used to be played against other blacks in media and in propaganda. Now the tables are turned in a way, and there's a lot of shit that's going against white men. And, and then there's a lot of disaffected women that they hate the white men. There's a lot of single mothers out there that hate their white baby daddies. They might just hate men in general. So I'm not saying there's not a lot of disaffected people. I'm not saying that there's not a lot of lonely, screwed up people, and a lot of people that have a lot of anxiety. There's shit, I know them. I meet them. You can see them. You guys might even think because I'm like talking like this, like I'm one of them. I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them. I can sympathize. My whole point is that the left wants to say, oh, these are right-wing, white supremacists on the right due to Trump's rhetoric claims, right? They want to find a correlation, some sort of congruency with the speech of Trump that is echoed in him. Trump, of course, had his writers do that recent speech for him that he read, condemning this and kind of trying to scapegoat the fucking computer games. And then you got the people with the computer. Here, I'm just pontificating. I'm finishing up here, though. Look, games and TV, go see the new Quentin Tarantino movie, right? At the end, close to the end, this takes place in the 60s, and one of the girls in the cult says, hey, let's go kill these Hollywood bastards, because they taught us through their movies about killing each other. So let's go kill the people that taught us to kill, right? And it's kind of one of those Quentin Tarantino things. But if you guys don't think that the culture hasn't been affected by pornography, and it hasn't been affected by playing and moving your physiology through and your eyes towards shooting and killing another, and saying there is nothing there to suggest that transfers into how one might interact in a social situation. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, look, you guys can bring up your hard dad all you want, saying, oh, pornography doesn't mean you're going to go out and rape, and playing video games doesn't mean you're going to go out and kill. I'm just saying, consider it again. Like, the one thing that they're going to say, though, is Trump's rhetoric necessarily did influence this then, right? So they'll allow something congruous there, but can science shore that up as effective as doing a video game analysis? I don't know, right? Anyway, so my whole point though is that as more attention of events gets pressed through the lens of media, and the media is in cahoots now with YouTube to funnel up, get everyone on the same concerns at the same time, basically reducing the whole constellation of possible concerns that they want people to focus on, right? Like I'm really glad that the Democrats brought out the loop-de-loo hippie lady that said, hey, look, the Democratic Party, it wasn't about healthcare. We got a sickness problem, not a healthcare problem, because it's problems with our soil, it's problems with our water, it's problems with the contaminants. I loved that. I love that sentiment. I'm glad it's injected into the psyches, and I think it's not only considerable, it needs to be done. We, in my administration, municipalities get rid of fluoride in the water. If you have chemicals to disinfect the water, that's fine, but fluoride doesn't become one of them. We know the stats. I don't know what sort of fucking alien thing that they think they're prepping everyone for. I know someone in the water department. She's even somewhat politically active, but she can't bite her own tail and say, hey, look, because it's a political issue, right? She doesn't have the political clout that I'm trying to gain in any respect to even clean up our potable water, or what we call our municipal water, right? The world's a fucking shit show. We all know it. There's more things to concern ourselves about than the few things, right? But what we have now are shooters, people shooting, killing people, and I really liked the responses of some of the other people, and I kind of ring true the whole, like, look, you want a gun and you're a fucking American citizen, then go out and get one. We're just going to kind of put you through these processes, right? Now, you might go, hey, I don't want to wait and register and have to get training and licensing and all that other shit. You might be all barking about that, like, hey, it's just my fucking right. Give me my fucking gun and get the fuck out of my way, right? But one can still have that right to bear arms and still get their weapon. Just go through this shit, learn how to handle it, learn what the sentiment is that comes down, the ethos that's being trained by individuals that are showing you how to use a firearm and so forth. Regardless of all this, folks, Mike Fail, 2020. Michael Travis Fail, Failsafe, Political Action Committee, right? If you guys want to give me any donations, I'm going to have the website set up soon. Right now, you can just go to mikefail.com. I got some things just written out. A lot that I've gone over today is just kind of my basic points. I think they're long form. The short form debate shit needs to be long form, 3-hour debates between a couple candidates. That's some fucking TV, propagandized news, propped up shit. I mean, the whole world's propped up, right? The whole world's propped up. This just happens to be the West. And the West's the best, according to Jim Morrison, and we're in it, and you're in it, and I'm in it. And I'm in a fucking building that's post and lintel with paint and insulation and all the products that come that are supposedly the comforts and the benefits of a living soul, right? And if you want to be a transitory migrant, which I think in the future there's going to be more nomads, not fewer nomads than there are today, traveling the globe because they can, right? And it will bring back, hopefully, a sense of primitivism that's combined and augmented with the tech that protects them. And all of humanity can scale up. India will scale up. China will scale up. Africa, we need to scale it up. All of it, it's not our business. It's our business as a nation to consider what's going on internationally. The idea of the American risk game and global empire expansion. Of course, Tulsi Gabbard's got it on the head. Look, we pull that shit back. The thing is if it's, hey, look, either you lose the dollar or you lose the military. You pull back the military. What do you choose? Well, the president and whoever's maintaining the U.S. hegemony, as long as they're aware that somebody else in the world is either buying our shit bonds or they're living in a shit country, as Trump calls it, right? Because exploitation of capital is it's finite at any given time. There's always somebody working, or there's always land and resources being exploited. It is a cannibalistic planet, but it's reifying, it's reviving, it's ongoing in how resilient it is, even in the face of species extinction. Climate science, not going to get into it in this video. Heavy considerations. Don't want to be ignorant with regards to what's going on with the climate, but I'm not without, climate science is not without its pushback. That being said, folks, I'm going to go ahead and bail out now. Appreciate all the feedback you guys can give me and whoever's been watching me and so forth. Check it out. Got this new painting over here. Got that over there. Got my state of Utah right there, all carved out. Even though who knows? Who knows if I'm going to be moving? Thanks for listening. It's only been an hour and 6 minutes, and I think I'm the guy. I just think it's up to you guys. Who the fuck you are? You silent viewers that watch me, right? You watch me and you never comment, and you never connect with me, right? But I might need you, right, to shore something up my way. Like, somebody that you think can help me? You think that maybe I'm the guy that is the dark horse candidate, the black horse candidate that Bannon thinks the Democrats need? Even if I say I'm coming in the middle, I'm splitting the difference. I think there's some sort of combination between some sort of contradictory things that people aren't paying attention to, that it's not all black and white. It's not all Republican. It's not all leftist and rightist horse shit. It's a cherry picking. If you guys think I'm that guy, then fucking help me out. Help pwn me up. Thanks for listening.